and finding out what makes them tick, what got them into business, and what makes them a positive, passionate businesswoman. So today I'm chatting with Julie Cliff, and she's the owner and founder of Space and Time. So welcome, Julie. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Kylie.
And you're zooming in with me today from Melbourne, aren't you?
I'm in Melbourne. Yes, it's a bit sticky. It's overcast today, but I'll take that anytime over cold and wet and windy.
Well, we are many hours away. I was just looking at flights to Melbourne the other day, and I think it's like 2.5 hours or something from Gold Coast Airport down to Melbourne. I'm up here on the New South Wales far north coast, surrounded a little bit with post-flood cleanup, etc. And yes, it's a little warmer too at the moment. But you're right, it's better than windy and blustery. So yeah, I'm pretty partial to a bit of autumn.
Yeah,
so,
me too. Me too.
Nice,
My favorite.
Yeah. So Julie, I'd really love it if you would tell me, how did you get started with Space and Time? What inspired you to do this?
So I'm an executive assistant by trade. So before starting my business, the first 20 years of working was as an executive assistant and administrator. And 15 of those years were at Melbourne Storm Rugby League Club. So helping others get organised and keeping everyone on track, I really enjoyed, and found that creating systems and processes and checklists and mail merges and those sorts of things really worked well for me to keep me on track, because I'm not particularly a naturally organised person. I try and do things in a rush so I can hurry up and move on to the next one. So let's make a checklist so I can go really fast and then come back and check everything with a checklist. So that was sort of how I started to get myself organised and teach myself the skills of being organised, even though I grew up as the oldest of 4 kids. So I've got some natural ability, but as I said, always liking to do things in a bit of a rush. And then again, working at Melbourne Storm and the cyclical nature of the footy season worked really well for that too. Let's make a pre-season checklist. Let's do the mail merge, as I mentioned, to use during the season, and all of those sorts of things. And at being there for 15 years, you could drag those things in every season. And so it worked very well. And then our kids were born. My husband and I, our oldest son was born 16 years ago, and joined mothers group and those sorts of things, and found out that not everybody could juggle work and babies, and I found that others needed a bit of a hand in their homes with decluttering and organising. So I found that I could transfer those sorts of checklists and things into the home to help people keep on track when they're juggling all the things with, when you've got a crying baby, no one's got any clean undies, what's for dinner, and all those sorts of things. So that was the start of the business 7 years ago. And it's just developing along the way from hands-on work and now more into the online coaching program. So that was the transition from, working in a corporate environment and then helping others in their home declutter and get organised.
And did you find through the pandemic that really, in a way, forced you to get it online?
Yeah, it was certainly something that I had wanted to do for a while, and I was sort of organised to do it, funnily enough, but I think it forced other people, of course, to join me and think, oh, maybe we can do this by watching what Julie's saying, get input from other people, members that are joining us as well, and learn from each other. So yes, it did force us, because of course in Melbourne we were in a lockdown a lot, so people were home a lot. I couldn't work with all of my clients that I work with, back in contact with now. So that meant that people needed the help and had the time to do it, I suppose, and the inclination to jump online and do it. So it was quite a blessing in that way.
Yes, there are a lot of positives that have come out of it, aren't there, for a lot of people. And I think one of those is the regrouping for families, and having more time than you ever would have had before. I know for me, with a teenager, those 2 years, wow, what a blessing to have those that time with her and with my husband and stuff. So yeah, a lot of us have, it's definitely been hard, but wow, there's been some real pros or pluses.
Definitely. And that's the only way we can look at it too, is what I think. We've got to look at the positives, because there's a lot of negatives as well. And, you know, a lot of people that haven't coped well, and those sorts of things. So, yeah, that's always my outlook, to look on all the positives.
Lovely. So, Julie, one thing I'm sure, so we'll stay on the topic of the pandemic for a moment, because I wonder, and I feel like I know what you might say here, that potentially a lot of people really struggled through that pandemic, those ones, particularly where you are in Melbourne, where you're in lockdown for so much of the time. And so did you find that people were really struggling in their own homes?
Yes. Yeah. So there was probably different people coped with it differently. Some people thought, oh, this is awesome, I've got the time, I'm home, I'll get it done myself, and were able to work through and get the jobs done, the decluttering, going through the kids' toys or clothes that they keep growing out of, all those sorts of things. But other people, as you say, they're trying to do homeschooling, they're working from home, you know, need to hurriedly set up workstations for everybody to be able to do their thing, particularly with littler kids where you're having to supervise them as well. It was really very difficult, and there was no escape from it. There was nowhere to go. You couldn't duck into the office to get away from it. So it was really difficult in that regard, as so many things happening at home at the one time. But then those people, or maybe some similar people, went, oh, I still haven't got the time to get the decluttering done anyway, because I'm just so busy with juggling all those things I just mentioned. So that they're starting to contact me now and go, you know, how can we put the house back together again after being cooped up at home for so long?
And, you know, I know it was a bit of a thing for a lot of people, and certainly a bit of that went on in our home, which is more online shopping than usual.
Yeah.
So, you know, that all adds to the clutter, doesn't it?
It does. And online shopping is difficult because you can't try it on, you can't see what it looks like, maybe you can't get good measurements or something like that. So you might have good intentions to get a new outfit because you do actually need it, you know, more things to wear around the home because you're not going into the office or whatever it might be, but you get it and it, you know, just doesn't fit right. And so there's lots of traps for that online shopping. It's not quite the same as going into a store and actually looking at it. And perhaps, as you're suggesting as well, that people are just spending more time doing it because there wasn't anything else to do, you know, just to lift their spirits a bit and, oh, just have a look at these sales, because there was plenty of those sales as well, to, you know, a bit of entertainment because there was nothing else to do.
Absolutely. So for you, having moved from being an executive assistant, and particularly, you know, for quite a lengthy period of time, and obviously for a very high profile organization, I'm sure there was a lot of fun and action and activity, to then working on your own or for yourself. I know you still, you know, would go out and see people and things, so you had some interaction, but how was that adjustment period from you, going from being employee to boss of yourself?
That's a really interesting question, and it's been 5 years now since I've left Melbourne Storm, and sort of 3 years full time in the business now. And I think it's probably only now that I'm really starting to think about those things. At the time, I was so busy, so focused, working, you know, really present with my clients and those sorts of things. But now spending a little bit more time out and about, I suppose, as well, and thinking, you know, that you do really miss that camaraderie, and particularly as you're suggesting, somewhere like Melbourne Storm, where you're walking around and seeing some of the greats. And was just in there last weekend for our first home game for the year, and you walk around and you just feel pretty awesome and pretty special, and then you come home and back into business and I'm it. So that's a really interesting question that I didn't feel it so much when I first left. I think it's sort of catching up with me a little bit now. But we'll look at that and tweak that and see if there's some ways that I can either, you know, do some more things within business, bigger businesses, just to keep interested, and have some different offerings for how people can set themselves up at home to, you know, really kick goals at work, because it's, you know, nothing worse than getting to work late because you couldn't find your keys, you got out of bed late, and, you know, you missed the train. you get into the office and you're absolutely exhausted, before the day has even started. So working those sorts of things in with how we can set up our homes, those systems, declutter and get organized so that you can, really do those things that you're trying to do when you get to work.
And for you, I know you've got a new team member that's been working with you for a few months now. Has that made a bit of a difference?
I'm still finding my way there. Sorry, I spoke over you.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still finding my way because I'd done all that admin for so long. As I said, the business has just turned 7. So I'd done the social media. I wrote all the blog posts. I posted them. I did, found my own venues to do my workshops in and those sorts of things. So I'm still trying to find out, well, what does that mean that I'm supposed to do? So I've started writing a book. So I thought, well, that will keep me, thank you, that'll keep me busy, and that will feed into the rest of the business. But also just being able to do more networking and spend a bit more time on the sales sort of side and developing the different offerings as well. So you really hit an interesting point there, because I was an executive assistant and administrator. That was all I knew so well, was all of that behind the scenes things, and I have a degree in PR and marketing as well, so I know all that so well. I didn't have any trouble handballing it onto Mary Lou. She's been awesome and so grateful for her help. But yeah, I'm really trying to still find my way. Well, what does that mean? Can I spend a bit of time watching The Good Place on the couch like I did for an hour or so today? Or should I be doing some more productive things? But that's just how I decided to spend some of my time today.
Good on you.
Yeah, we got to do it every now and then. Everybody was out of the house. There was not one person in the house. That doesn't happen that often these days. So I grabbed the opportunity.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. Well, tell us something interesting about you that most people don't know.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I share a lot on Facebook. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I'm a big Kylie Minogue fan. And my sister and I make costumes to wear to the concerts every time she's here. And the latest one, which was online, I made a gold jumpsuit on the day when I decided in the morning that I was going to do it, and just sat down at my computer to watch the streamed concert. So that's something that not everyone would know, particularly in this group. But if you follow me on Facebook at all, you would have seen that gold jumpsuit quite a few times. So that's probably a big one. But I grew up on a farm. I was interested to hear Sally Jess talk last night that I didn't realize she's rural and does her interior design from their farm. So I look forward to having a chat to her about that. So, growing up around tractors, driving since I was 3 years old, rounding up sheep and just getting grubby and having a good time was sort of how I grew up. So again, a lot of people would know that, perhaps not so much the people in this group.
I love your socials. I just think you do such a great job with that. And
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I didn't know about the farm though, but I definitely knew about the gold jumpsuit, which I love. And then the other thing I think that's really great that you share is about your processes to stay on track. You know, how you go running every morning, you're up at a certain time each day, you're, getting the bread on the way home, that whole kind of thing. And for you, knowing that you have to stick with that plan, you get that time for yourself in the morning, etc. So yeah, it's interesting because of the type of business that you have. It's really very fascinating, I think, for the rest of us to see how you personally do it. So it's all very well to teach people how to do things, but to know how the teacher is actually doing it too, I think is interesting. So do you have a mantra or a quote that you live by, or even a word of the year that you live by to keep you
probably, we were talking before about looking on the bright side, that Pollyanna sort of, not being silly about it. As I said, I grew up on a farm. I'm very realistic. My brother Barge, his actual name is Brendan, he's the youngest of the 4 of us. He is a shearer. So his job, he shears sheep. So I'll often be talking to him about different things, and might be talking about needing to get to something new, or a client. I might be telling a story about a client and they said that they had difficulty getting rid of it or something like that, and Barge would go, well, what are they talking about? Are they still making them? Could they go and buy another one if they decided they wanted again? Very practical, straight down the line sort of thinking. So that's sort of my upbringing as well, and that very matter of fact, I suppose. So that's always in the back of my head. What's the most straightforward and easiest way we can get something done, whether it's for myself or working with a client, and looking on that bright side. But let's be realistic about it, and think about the downsides as well, of course.
I'm sure that's what makes you just absolutely wonderful in your business, is that you have that practical nature. So it's like, let's just find the best way forward and just get it done. But also that you have this empathy and you can hear. And I know when I did my online course with you, I really felt heard. I really felt that you held the space for people to share about why they might be in a situation, or whatever. So I think that's really beautiful how you do that. And also you're very clever at getting things back on track. When people go off on a bit of a tangent, which you and I both are in a similar role when we're running things online, that it can be easy for those tangents to go with, when you've got someone wanting to have a turn, and it's like, oh, how do I bring them right back? And you do that incredibly well. I actually learned some good tips from you there.
That's lovely.
So, Julie, what would you tell other women who are just starting out in business? What would you like them to know that perhaps you wished you'd known?
I've written a whole blog with 10 points about exactly that, and it's relevant still today, that even if a lot of these points are up your alley as well, Kylie, as far as if you have a website, that's helpful, but it probably won't bring in business straight away. So there's a lot of work obviously that goes behind the scenes there. Same as Facebook. The work's not just going to come and find you. You need to use it as a tool, as a part of a lot of different things, not just the be all and end all, and have lots of pokers in the fire, so to speak. It's not all going to work perfectly. Sometimes just getting it done and having a go before waiting for it to be absolutely perfect. You've got to do it. Otherwise, sometimes within business, you'd never do it. So there's a few things. And just be patient and sort of back yourself, I think. So there's probably some other relevant ones to specifically my industry, but overall they would be the most. You just can't underestimate how difficult it is to run your own business. I'm being open and honest and explaining that it doesn't just happen. 7 years in business is quite a while, and I'm grateful that I've been able to get to this part, but it's taken a lot of work and support from people around. So and even if you do the numbers, sometimes you might be better off staying and doing the job that you're currently doing if you are being paid by someone, because it all takes time to build up. So not to put a dampener on it if anyone's thinking of starting a business out there, but perhaps talk to a few people and get some support and experience, some mentors to be able to support you along the way as well.
I just think that's so fantastic. And every point you raised all came back to, I believe, back to patience. Yeah. And whether it's the social media growth, whether it's getting the traffic to your website, whether it's, all those different things, it all involves being patient. And what's that line from that movie about build it and they will come? Well, that's not the case.
No.
Build it and they won't necessarily come. You need to keep finding new ways to bring them in.
That's right. So, go and pick them up in an Uber and bring them there, or try and find some other ways, because that's exactly right. They might come, be awesome, but probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked with many people over the years that have come to me and said, I set up my business, I did this website, and then I've had no sales. I'm like, what are you doing to get those sales? Like, well, I built the website. Like, well, it didn't. Well, that's good. That's good. The website. Now let's start.
Yeah, and there just doesn't seem to be any silver bullet. I think it's the same with any industry. That, as I said about having all those pokers in the fire. You've got to have your networking. You've got to have this, and and with a bit of luck, you'll just get a few referrals, of course, a little few bits and pieces coming from all of those areas to be able to build it and continue to grow it.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me, what's your top tip that you can share with other women in business that will be listening now that they can walk away with today?
Yeah, I think it's about managing your time or prioritizing your time. There's my business space and time look a lot of how you manage your stuff to be able to help you do all those awesome things when you go out the front door. But also, of course, your time management is a big part of it as well. So we only have 168 hours a week. We need to be really diligent with how we use that time. And that's why I'm so structured with how, getting up at that time in the morning, doing my exercise, all those things that you just mentioned, because when else are you going to do it? Yeah, it's difficult at the other end of the day. You got to go to footy training, ballet, whatever the things are the kids are doing, or networking events that you're doing yourself. So really being strict and diligent with your weekly planner can be a great way to be able to help you prioritize those things. So get things off of your to-do list and actually allocated to a time during the week. And have weekly things like going through your paperwork. Your in tray isn't a filing system. That's where it goes until you process it. So, have a weekly, or it might even be every day you might need to go through your paperwork depending on what's coming in. But so setting up, again, those systems and processes that we were talking back at the start. I just can't talk highly enough about running a business, particularly if you are still employed and still work for somebody else and you're trying to build this side hustle thing. What days of the week are you going to work on it, or who can look after the kids in the afternoon a couple of days a week or something, so that you can start to spend some time on the business. Because again, if you can't manage your time and get that structured, I don't know how else you can do it when you're juggling so many things.
Absolutely. I love what you've said, and I agree with you, and I have to put it in my calendar and schedule it. So I recently had to write a big proposal for a company, and so I scheduled it in the time. I then didn't do it, and then all of a sudden I realized, that was due. I not wasted, because I had really important other things to do too, but then I was like, well, I just have to get up extra early and get that done. So I find unless I've scheduled it, it's literally not going to happen, and my to-do list will just carry on week after week after week. So yeah, I write the to-do list, I then schedule it of when that's going to be worked on, and then off we go. So like you, I feel it's very important to have a very structured working week. Otherwise, I would never finish.
Definitely. I agree. Yeah. And you don't want to be up all hours of the night. I get to bed at 9:30, then up again early in the morning, and that's my hours that I keep, and to be that disciplined for both, those bedtimes and time to get up, or you need to cram a lot in the hours that I'm up and awake. So do yourself a favor and get it in the diary and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just wonderful. And I think all of us who own our own business have been there and done those years where we do mad long, many times I've worked till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and then all weekend, not just for weeks on end, but for years on end. And I don't do that anymore. Every now and then, like this Sunday just gone, I just did a half day work because I just needed to finish some things, and that was fine. But I know it's not every weekend. And sometimes still I'll do a big night, but I know it's not every week, certainly not even in every month. So that feels good.
Oh, it would. Yeah, you deserve the break. Absolutely.
Yeah. When you can really prioritize family time or you time, and then make sure that that structured work time is during that time, and then you walk away and then you're fresher, aren't you?
That's right. Back. And it's amazing what you can get done when you've got that pocket of time, and then the kids are coming home or whatever it might be, that you've only got that window. So head down, get it done.
Absolutely. Well, Julie, thank you so much for sharing some of your time with me. One of my favorite bits was something you said right at the beginning, which was, believe it or not, I actually never started off as a very organized person. I thought, wow, I just think that's amazing. So really, you can evolve into anyone or anything you want to be.
Absolutely.
Set your sights on it and just make it happen. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And also one of the lessons and learnings I'm taking away from this today is patience. And I think, hoping everybody listening is really remembering that, what's that little quote about nothing worthwhile comes without effort.
That's true.
And having patience in that process as we know where we're headed. But also you need to have goals to even know where you want to head, don't you?
Yeah.
Write it all down, do those to-do lists, etc. There's just been some little pillars coming from you today, Julie.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So much. So it's just a pleasure and a privilege to have you in the Positive Passionate Businesswomen's group. And it was so wonderful having you as a speaker recently. I just thought you were fabulous. So thank you. So I've been talking with Julie Cliff of Space and Time, and I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, the founder of Positive Passionate Businesswomen. So we will be sharing how you can connect with Julie in the caption, and definitely go and follow her. She's got some magic wisdom that she shares constantly. So thank you, Julie. Just loved having that time with you tonight.
Thanks, Kylie. Take care.
All right. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.